So I was raised in a Christian church. I was born into one my whole life until left home, and then but I've always studied the Bible,
Hmm.
and so I had a belief indoctrinated into me. But then I'm just really inquisitive and I love learning. So as I got older, I spent a lot of time learning science and things that science has proven, and just with biology and with the world. And I think that for myself, for my threshold of proof, I think that I've been able to prove that there's intelligent design, that I think creation proves objectively that there's a creator with coded DNA and the cosmological constant. And the math is just the odds that it's just happened by itself is just astronomical. And so I've been able to prove intelligent design, but I think that after that, it takes a leap to get to uh, the Bible. In other words, I don't know how it's there. There is evidence to prove either way. I don't understand atheism, like, because you can't disprove a God. But I can understand why somebody would be agnostic, and I think I am to a certain extent, because I believe that Jesus is God, but I can't give evidentiary proof.
Okay, so so in your conclusion of God, real quick before I walk down this path, um, the do you conclude that you did conclude you said that there's one creator, so does that mean that there's only one source of all life?
No, I can't prove if there's multiple, or if it's singular or multiple. I should have said, well, yeah, creator is a singular term. I should have said creators.
Okay. So yeah, I think you need to, if you were to believe in the Christian God, you would need to get to one God, one Creator, right? At some point, so you would need to make sense of um, why there would be, why there could be multiple creators, right?
Well, well, biblically, I mean, again, there's no evidential physical proof, but biblically, I believe that it says that there's more than one. In John, in the beginning of John, when it says that he was God and he was with God.
Hmm.
Now,
What term does he use to describe Jesus there?
the word,
Hmm.
well, it begins as the word, but as it goes
Right,
down
right.
through
But
verses, it uses a
what does
lot.
the word mean? What, like, if you're looking at it in the Greek, what does that actually mean? That word,
Logos,
logos.
messenger.
Yeah. No, that's not what that means.
Okay.
Logos would mean it's the same. That's actually the word that we get in English logic from. So logos is the intellect of God or the wisdom of God.
Okay. Do you believe that if this the statement is that the word was God and was with God, you don't read that as being multiple beings
Oh, of
in the
course we
God
do
family?
believe. Yes, we do. My point to that was we do believe there's multiplicity in God, right?
Hmm.
But we look at them as three persons, right? So we would say Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But if you look at logos, right, the intellect of God, just like if you were to use yourself as an example, you are yourself, but your knowledge or your wisdom is you. However, it is distinct from your brain, let's say, or your heart, right? It's still distinct. So we do believe there's a multiplicity in persons of God. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. So even though now you can assign all creation to Jesus, right, or the Word,
yep.
or either one, God or Jesus, but being that there's different personages in the family of God, I guess, couldn't there could be more than one creator, right? It doesn't mean that there was,
No,
but there.
what I'm saying is like when I was using you as an example, right? Your your wisdom, right, or your knowledge is distinct from your hand, but they're
Oh,
both you, right?
hmm.
You're still one human, right? One being. It would be that would be the analogy I would use to describe what it means that Jesus is the Logos, right, is
Uh-huh.
that he's the intellect of God. He is God, but he is distinct from the Father or distinct from the Spirit, right? That doesn't mean that there's multiple beings. It's still one being, just like your wisdom is distinct from your hand, but you're still one being.
Okay, so when you're talking about, um, let me get this right. Okay, so if I were to say that, okay, in my mind, the term God would be like the term family, and in that family, there's multiple members. There's one God, there's one family, but there's multiple beings in that family.
No,
That's
we don't
not
believe
what you
there's
would.
multiple beings. No.
Okay, I gotcha.
No,
Okay, so
just
then,
one being, and we believe that that being, his nature is triune, which means he's multi-personal, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Just as if you are one being, but you are only capable of being one person. God is not equal to humans, right? He is advanced and transcendent. He is one being, but has the ability to be multi-personal.
okay, I understand. So in that case, then going back to the beginning, creator would be, in your mind, creator would be right to be a singular.
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. But and it, but I'd like to know because, and I think the reason I hit to join was because we were talking about, or the panel was talking about objective and subjective truth, and I
Yep.
think that I can only go so far objectively in the physical world that I live in with my five senses
Yeah.
and cognitive
So here,
thinking.
let me give you this, okay? And I'm not going to be able to go too much. This wouldn't be like my wheelhouse or my area of expertise. I would have to dig a little bit deeper onto this one. However, I do know that if you're going to logically conclude that there's a God, right? The question would be whether it's multiple gods that created everything or whether it's just one God, right? Logically speaking, if you go back, there it would make more, and this is where I would dive deeper to give you more evidence, but you just look into this to see which one is more logical for there to be one creator or two. And the conclusion would be two creators wouldn't logically fit, because there has to be, if you're going to do look into like if an infinite regress is even possible, there has to be one uncaused cause, right? If you're looking at everything cause and effect, there has to be one uncaused cause for everything to begin. Not two uncaused cause. Just one would logically fit. Now, let's just assume that you got there, and this is where you should probably do more research, whether there's two or one, or multiple or one, I should say. If you do conclude that there is one God, that means He is the one source of all life. And when you're looking into the history of Jesus, there's four things that historians would conclude and agree on, even if they're atheist, secular, Christian, whatever. Okay, they would number one believe that Jesus was a real person. They number two would believe he for sure died on the cross, and number three, they do believe that he was buried in the tomb, and after 3 days it was empty. And then number four, that his disciples that were closest to him believed that he resurrected, genuinely had a belief that he resurrected and saw him from the dead, right? Now the question is, because historians cannot conclude on a supernatural claim. Naturally speaking, what is the explanation of the empty tomb? When you start to look into the possible natural explanations of the empty tomb, you'll find that the probability of those events actually happening are either extremely low or not possible. When you approach the evidence with a presupposition that historians cannot do, with a presupposition and the assumption that there is a God and one creator, it would actually make more logical sense that he resurrected from the dead than he didn't. Therefore, if you do conclude that it's more probable that he resurrected than any other explanation, then you would have to ask yourself this question: why did the creator of the universe resurrect this man from the dead who claimed to be the Son of Man, Son of God, and the Messiah? Why did he validate him in that way? Because if he wasn't valid in what he claimed to be, he wouldn't have resurrected him. Then when you start to look into the reliability of the New Testament, his words, and then how he validates the Old Testament, and you look at Christianity as a whole, then you realize, after believing his words and seeing that his words are valid, then you realize that he claimed to be God in the flesh, and that he had a purpose and a reason as to why he came in the flesh, and therefore that's why you believe he's God.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just think there's still a jump there. I mean, out of what you said, the only thing that I think that I could find the most substantive, like, foundation for a knowledge of Jesus being God is the witnesses that 11 people, at least, that were with him, the 11 that survived, actually believed in what he taught and saw what he did enough to where they died horrible deaths. 10 really bad deaths where they were martyrs. If you read Fox's Book of Martyrs, I mean, that to me, that would go a long way to bringing truth to what's in the Bible. Is that the men who were with him and saw those things believed, or it impacted them so much that they were willing to give up their lives for him.
I agree. It's a very strong evidence that we have historically. But where's the big jump that you said?
Well, because like you're saying, historically, I guess I would have to read more into it. I'd probably have to just plead ignorance on whether it's a historical fact that the tomb was empty and that
Okay.
that you're talking. I mean, I believe
Fair
it.
enough.
I can say I believe it. Like, I do believe that
Yeah,
when
but I don't want you to just believe it. You bring the evidence, or find the evidence if there is any, right?
yeah
Find the evidence and see if it's something that look. There's not going to be absolute proof. We're not going to have video proof evidence or anything like that. What we are going to have is evidence that would lead us to probability. What is most probable as far as what happened with Jesus on the cross, right? And we have pieces of evidence that we can put together and conclude as to which way is more probable. And that's how history works, by the way, in general. Like, especially as in ancient history, like the Roman Empire, etc. You have to base it on probability, on the evidence that you can acquire, that you can gather. So
sure.
so you would do the same as any historian, except historians that are researching these things and putting it out publicly, right? They cannot conclude on supernatural claims. Like, they can't, even if the evidence is so strong, they can't sit here and make a claim publicly that this is evidence that he is God. Like, they can't make that claim even if they believe it, even if they have the evidence, right? Supernatural claims or conclusions are not allowed. But we're not historians that are tied to that. To have our hands tied behind our back. We can take the same evidence that the historians came, and we can conclude, because if you believe that there's a God, you can conclude to a supernatural claim. So take the evidence and look at it for yourself, and you tell me what's more logical as for of the empty tomb. Is it logical that they all hallucinated at once? Is it logical that that the disciples who ran away and were scared all of a sudden came back to the tomb, fought some Roman soldiers, and took the body? Is it possible that Jesus survived the crucifixion somehow and walked up out of there? All these are the natural explanations that people have, and I'm sure you could probably come up with a couple others. But you just ask yourself, is it possible, given the situation?
Yeah,
And
but not
then you tell me.
possible, but not probable.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course. There's a
Okay.
difference.
All right. Well, thanks a lot for your time.
Yep. No problem, man.